Hello everyone. I was hoping to take a moment or two of your time to speak with you about our summer reading project and to try to encourage you to enter into this endeavor with some excitement and enthusiasm for the many options that you'll have. Specifically, we, the members of the English department, are trying to help you become active readers who actually enjoy participating in a conversation with the author of that particular book. And one way to do this is to read closely by annotating your texts. Over the last couple of months, we've been reviewing the titles, and while we have retained a number of the classics, you will notice that there are some new selections as well. And we encourage you to dip your toes into uncharted waters and gravitate towards the titles that you think may appeal to you. There are a number of choices, and out of those choices you are required to read two. So every student is asked to read 2 books over the summer. Not an onerous task when you think about it, because we're off for about 10 weeks anyway. So that's maybe 1 book every 5 weeks if you look at it in those terms. One new wrinkle, though, is that unlike in the past where you could download a digital version of the book or you could go to the library and pick up a copy, we are asking that you purchase the 2 books now. Why? Because you're going to have to write in them and you're going to keep them in your own private library. Therefore, we are asking that whichever 2 you decide to work with, you purchase those 2 books and write your name in big letters across the binding. You may not be able to see it very well here, but if you look very carefully, you would notice that across the binding are the letters of the last name, my last name, at least part of it anyway. And we're asking that you do the same. This way it establishes the fact that you own that particular book, and it precludes the opportunity to share books among students for when it comes time for the assessment. Okay, so what's the point of the exercise? Well, you can be a reader, a very passive reader, and find that you're turning pages and you're not retaining a thing. And then the week before the assessment, you're running to Spark Notes or ebooks or one of those kind of websites like Book Rags, and you're just trying to figure out what happened in that particular story. But that really is not what we're hoping for. We really want you to read these books, and we want you to enjoy it. So one way to do that is to be an active reader, and when we say active, we mean participate. And one way to participate is through annotations. It's like having a conversation with the book. You can write almost anything you want. You could put questions, you can make comments, you can mark things with highlighters, you can look at things you want to revisit. Basically, your annotations become a permanent record of your conversation with the text. It creates a text-to-self connection. Even looking at this novel by Sajal Badani, all of these little post-its represent different pages that stood out to the particular reader. So the question arises, what do you annotate? Well, you certainly don't want to mark everything, because if you mark everything, then nothing really stands out. Plus, you also want to be able to enjoy the book, too. So we're not asking you to annotate every single thing, but perhaps you could look at important plot developments, or maybe you can look at key ideas, perhaps some vocabulary words that you're not familiar with, specific word choices, figurative language, thematic development, characterization, symbols, objects that seem to take on greater meaning. You can do that by using brackets or parentheses, asterisks, marginal notes, post-its, highlighters, anything you wish. But the neat thing about annotation is you can't really go wrong in many ways, because it's what is resonating with you. And every person brings something different to what they're reading. You have your own individual perspective that you are viewing this novel through. And so something that may work for you in chapter 5 might be something that I really didn't even pay attention to. Of course, there are the major moments that I don't think anyone would miss out on, but the beauty of reading is that it becomes a very individualized experience to a certain extent, because there are different characters, passages, chapters that are just going to hit home for you and may not for others. And that's what I think is magnificent about the written word. Anyway, let's take a look at this. You can see that here's an example of an annotated page. Again, in this particular case, the student has decided to color code different things. For example, anything that's in pink, like here and over here, happen to be references to figurative language, literary devices, whether it be symbol or, in this case, examples of alliteration, or even the idea of this symbolism of the young character who releases the hair tie in a method of freeing herself from the constraints of her society. She actually does that on, what page is this, 135 in the book. The green references seem to be references with regard to characterization. And you'll see there are quite a few here on these 2 pages that are going back and forth between these 2 characters of Amisha and Nima. The book is set in India, by the way. Anything that's in blue, I think, were thematic developments, things that tied into the theme of the book, which sometimes is obvious to us as we go through. This idea of liberation and freedom and the parallels between the 2 characters, that they are striving to get in touch with their deepest thoughts and their deepest ideas through this concept of storytelling. And yellow is just simply for plot development. So you could play with this any way you want. There's no one way to annotate a text, but this is just an example of using different colors and highlighting to try to have certain sections that stand out for you when the time comes. What do you need to do with all this stuff? Well, you'll bring in your annotated book on the day of the assessment. We're going to encourage you to use your notes when you respond to whatever the test questions happen to be. We're hoping that this will create a relationship between you and the book that you have read, or the books, plural, because there's 2 of them, that you have read. It shouldn't be a threatening experience. It should be something that's enjoyable. It should be something that hopefully you dive into and you find that perhaps the book makes an impact on you on some level. But again, it is our deepest and most sincere wish that this isn't a chore for you, that rather picking up 2 books over the summer can be a very uplifting and enjoyable experience, and one that perhaps will have a lasting impact upon you in the weeks and the months that come. So I thank you very much for your time, and good luck to you with regard to your summer reading project.